If you want your jet to look as cool as mine, click the link in the description down below, get 3% off of anything you buy in the Gaijin store, and be awarded this decal on screen. The F4F ICE has got to be the most anticipated F4 Phantom the game has ever had. People have been asking for this thing for a very long time, ever since even the EJ Kai came out, the current S2000 in Israel tech tree, and now they finally have their German F4F ICE. Unfortunately, a lot of people would say that it is a little bit too late for this thing to be added to the game. Well, not literally, it of course can be added, and it is getting added, but in a competitive sense, it's a little bit late for the F4F ICE. And really, we could probably pretty much all see this coming. This is a plane that relies solely on its missiles and doesn't really have any kind of redeemable flight performance qualities when compared with peer aircraft. This is of course a 60s airframe, but it's carrying 90s and 2000s weaponry, and that's where the issue lies. We're gonna have a very hard time balancing this thing. I say we, really it's Gaijin, and the community is gonna have a very hard time just coming to terms with wherever this thing ends up, because either way, I really don't see this thing being a fun plane for everybody. As always, this is the dev server. It is probably going to change, specifically battle ratings, but things like flight models and missile characteristics and stuff like that can also change before the live server comes out. Regardless though, I really don't see the story of the F4F ICE ever changing. That's just what you get when you get a plane where the flight performance is really terrible in comparison to the technology that it's carrying for the time. Currently on the dev server, Gaijin has this plane at 12.7 battle rating, which isn't the highest. We now have 13.0 battle rating for planes like the F-15C and the Su-27SM, but 12.7 as far as a matchmaker goes may as well be 13.0, because you're very rarely ever going to see an 11.7 game, and being that 13.0 battle rating is probably going to be one of the most populated battle ratings in all of War Thunder, you can bet that most of the time you're going to be getting sucked up rather than going down. And so you have a top tier jet that is going to be fighting the absolute top tiers game after game after game, and it's not really anything special in the weapons department when you look at the other airplanes it's going to be fighting up against. The F-15C, just as an example, because it's fresh off the top of my head, you've got 8 AMRAAMs that it could possibly be carrying, or more commonly, more than likely going to be like a 6 and 2, 6 AMRAAMs and 2 IRCCM missiles. The F4F ICE, while it can carry 4 AMRAAMs of its own, that's it. There is no such thing as 6 and 2, or if you're feeling really brave, full 8 AMRAAM loadout. You're stuck with a 4 and 4, which isn't necessarily a bad loadout by any means, and at 12.7 that is a perfectly acceptable loadout, but it's definitely not the best, and that's a problem when your flight performance is definitely the worst. Not only is the flight performance going to be the absolute worst at the battle rating, but it's also lacking features that are just becoming common in today's top tier game that really help the quality of life of a plane and really does push it up on the scale of being competitive. I'm talking about having HMD, which the F4F ICE does not, and I'm talking about having a healthy supply of countermeasures, something where you don't really have to worry about running out every single match if you get shot at by multiple IRCCM missiles. And with the future of multipath, as far as being able to fly low to the ground and not die to radar missiles, very uncertain right now, you are going to want to be thinking about, will I be able to run enough flares to not die to IRCCMs, because I have a very limited amount of countermeasure pops compared to stuff like the Mirage 2000 or the F-15C or the Gripen, but at the same time, you might not be able to just hug the deck and stay safe from radar missiles, so you're probably going to have to be running some chaff. Only time will tell, we'll see, but the point is that the F4F is clearly lacking some features that are just becoming commonplace in today's top tier. There is a little bit of a positive here to talk about. The F4F ICE did just recently get what is essentially an AIM-9M. They're officially called AIM-9L/ICE, I believe, and all that means is that it's an AIM-9L with a modified seeker. So they took an AIM-9L, they slapped an AIM-9M IRCCM seeker into it, and there you have it. It does not have a smokeless motor like the typical AIM-9M does, so in ground RB or sim battles, that is something to watch out for, and it's kind of missing out on a big advantage of a 9M. I get that smokeless motors are huge in those settings, but for ARB, it's really not a big deal, and having the IRCCM is a massive upgrade over a typical AIM-9L. And so for a 12.7 battle rating where they currently have this thing, Absolutely. I'm very glad that they did that, but that being said, I still think that this thing is a little bit over tiered. I would argue that this plane more so belongs around the 12.3 battle rating range. But again, as I've just mentioned, even that has become a little bit uncertain to me, just because we don't know what's going to be happening with multipath. If it turns out that AMRAAMs are going to be very difficult to multipath close to the ground, if they require that 50 meters or below altitude, then yeah, this thing might be an absolute menace if it gets down tiered into something like an 11.3, 11.7 match consistently. On that front, I'm just going to wait and see how it plays out. This is of course all a hypothetical, so I'm just going to go off of what we currently have on the live build of the server, where multipath is 100 meters and it's a very reliable way of defeating radar missiles. And in that case, absolutely, I think that this thing could be fine at 12.3. AMRAAMs, while they are nice to have, they are by no means an unbeatable missile. It is not certain death for anybody, so long as you can just fly low to the ground. And 9Ms will be strong at 12.3. You look at this update and you see the F-16 in the French tech tree being 12.3 with 6 AIM-9Ms with an F-16A flight model. It's pretty crazy. And the F4F has 4 9Ms with an F4 flight model that honestly, even at 11.0, is barely competitive in a dogfight. So no matter how you spin the F4F ICE in its battle rating, it really will never be something that I think fits perfectly into the game. Unless you move it hilariously too low in BR, it's really not a plane that I think is ever going to be truly competitive. Sure, it's going to get kills, it'd be decent at 12.3, and I sure as hell wouldn't want to be playing it at 12.7. But similar to something like a Harrier, the GR7 or the AV-8B, these are aircraft that you really shouldn't be getting tons of kills with at top tier, but just because of the fact that top tier is top tier and you carry some decent missiles, or at least standard for its battle rating, you still get kills anyways. And I think that the F4F is going to be in a very similar boat, just to a lesser degree, because at least this thing can go supersonic. Would I be in a rush to grind this thing out once the update finally drops? No, me personally, I wouldn't. I don't think that this plane is going to be particularly fun for anybody unless you are like truly an F4F ICE enjoyer. You've always liked the plane, you think it's cool in real life, by all means, sure. I think you can still have fun with it. I don't think it's going to necessarily be a bad plane because, again, that's just kind of the nature of top tier. If you have good enough missiles in a 16 versus 16 environment, you can absolutely succeed. But that being said, from a competitive standpoint, I think there's definitely better options out there if you want to consistently have some good matches. So I would hold off on the F4F ICE if you're really only able to get one plane at a time. There's a lot of really good options out there, especially so if this thing's going to stay at 12.7. I would much sooner recommend you go grind out the F-15C or the Su-27, the J-11, the Mirage. Any of these planes that are truly top tiers and have these active radar homing missiles is probably going to result in more fun for you. Again, as I said, unless you are something like an F4F ICE enjoyer. So that's going to be it for the F4F ICE for now, at least until it comes to the live server. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know what battle rating you think it should be specifically. I'm interested to hear that. I'll be uploading a video about the 2 new top tier premiums we're getting next. Are they worth it? Are they not worth it? Should you even pre-order it? God forbid. Little hint. And until then, I'll see you guys later.